Handel would have liked, and all the authentic stuff. It's the north of England, you know, Philharmonic Hall, Liverpool, big orchestra, much too big for Handel, really, singing with quite a lot of vibrato, totally inauthentic. But you sing, I know that my Redeemer liveth, with sincerity. Faked sincerity, real belief. It doesn't really matter. And you are uplifting the whole audience, and you can feel it, and you can practically see it. And this is an audience of people who basically, at the end of the show, will say, well, that was a very nice dress you were wearing, and they criticize you on that. But while you're singing, they are lifted up, and they are inspired. And Handel, when he wrote the piece, he was congratulated by a chum on writing wonderful virtuosic music for famous singers of the day to sing. He said, I didn't write Messiah for that. I wrote it to make people better. And I do believe, even when I was coming from a position of complete, devout, signed-up atheism, I always did believe that for the 2.5 hours that a performance of Messiah runs, people, well, maybe they're better people. Nothing to do with Consolation. I think they've been taken somewhere else.
Have you heard the soul-shattering magnificence of the crowd, the football crowd, singing at a cup final in Cardiff? Well, I'm being perfectly serious.
Yes, I'm listening to you seriously.
A lift of a power.
Yes.
Does it make them better? They go out and beat hell out of the people afterwards.
What are they singing?
They don't do that.
Excuse me.
George, what are they singing? They're Welsh, they just love to sing. But, I mean,
but they sing magnificently.
What are they singing?
Are you saying that no reader of Proust has ever also been a reader and a follower of Marquis de Sade?
On the contrary.
Yes.
On the contrary, good.
And could I also make the point that I didn't say the audience was singing, the audience is listening to me singing. And if they're very lucky and they're at a non-authentic, politically correct performance, they are allowed to stand up for the Hallelujah chorus. And they love it.
Yes. So they do it at cup final.
Yeah, but Men of Harlech, please.
Oh,
You know, this is the most important point. I think that, yes, this is not snobism or anything of the sort, but I cannot understand the equation of the mob at Wembley with the audience of...
Mob?
I have seen them. I've studied their psychology as best as I can.
When were you last at a cup final? I'm serious.
And that includes in Nigeria when we play our enemies across the border. I cannot equate that when I go to listen to Catherine...
Let me help you. Let me help you with this difficult equation. When we were talking before about the upliftingness of art and so on, God knows I spend about as much of my time gaping at portable paintings as anybody else of my class background and education, and I greatly enjoy it. But I'm often dreadfully aware that what I'm looking at are monuments to ego. And in their way, extraordinary feats of individualistic display. And late 20th century and early 21st century art is all about celebrity and personality. We only have to think of Damien Hirst and so forth. So what's overtaken our culture has overtaken that culture as well. And everybody who merchandises modern art knows that they're merchandising celebrity. And my way of explaining that has always been that the art form of the late 20th and early 21st century is actually merchandising. That is the activity. Now, when you come to talk about football, what are you actually talking about? I mean, you're talking about something which is an enormous mass phenomenon, which contains incredible amounts of intellectual energy, which commands vast amounts of money. Every single person watching it on television or sitting in the stadium is an expert on the game, can discuss it for hours. Remember Brecht saying what he wanted from a theatre audience was the same kind of intelligent detachment and passion that you can find in a sports crowd. And he knew nothing about 21st century football. It is the legitimate cultural expression in Britain. It finances itself. It doesn't need to plunder anybody. It doesn't need to lie and bullshit and grandstand. We have totally mediocre people running the arts establishment in England, and we have geniuses running football.
And the music's great. The music is great.
And the music is actually great, and the Mexican wave is one of the great performance arts of the late 20th, early 21st century. It's very important not to be snobbish about football, and we will not understand our own isolation within our own cultures as Mandarins unless we understand how much hostility to what we represent is actually bound up in this cultural expression. In some ways, we have provoked it because of the way in which the art establishment has withdrawn unto itself, premiated itself, patted itself on the back, invited itself to cocktail parties. We became an onanistic elite, and football is our punishment.
Yes. But let's for a moment a little modesty about our small brains. The best historical estimate is there were 10 people at Golgotha. We can accurately say there were 1,100 or so at the premiere of Hamlet. There were about 1,400 at the premiere of the Missa Solemnis. At the finale of the Copa Mundial, there were 2.5 billion. The human brain, now let me just make my point, cannot take in what that means. When Karl Marx says quantity leaps into absolute quality, he's of course completely right, asking how do you conceptualize, which meant that when Maradona was running towards the goal, and Maradona found that fantastic phrase when he was cheating, it is the hand of God, that crazily brilliant inspiration. And Maradona is a version of the word for the Virgin Mary, as is Madonna, of course. And Maradona, when he was running towards that goal, the heart rate acceleration of 2.5 billion people on the planet. No other such event has ever been imagined, has even been imagined. What does it mean when 2.5 billion hearts begin to accelerate? The comic side was the English Water Board issued a very polite statement, tried to avoid going to the toilet, to the loo, at the same moment at half-time. We can't handle it. Now, no Shakespeare, no Beethoven has ever had the loo system suspended for human emotion. Now, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know what sociological concept can handle a planetary emotion. No politics has ever had 2.5 billion people.
It has a very boring repercussion for my business.
And
the only way to validate yourself or get credibility...
I'm just trying to say...
Hang on, I've started now. I'm agreeing with you massively. The only way to validate yourself or gain real credibility with most people in public life in England nowadays, if you are an artist, a classical musician, especially because we are all nerds, or an intellectual, is to proclaim a love of sport. I don't actually, I go to the ballet, that's my sport, and I can't join in. I mean, our Prime Minister had it kept quiet that he went to see King Lear last year. You know, in case it ruined his image. That's what the 2.5 billion have done.
Yes.
I can't quite imagine.
But
seeing my job off.
The important point, surely, George, one important distinction is that from those 11 people at Golgotha, that an emotion has been passed down the centuries, increasing with every moment, so that across time, diachronically, the weight of emotion is enormous and also carrying on, whereas that 2.5 billion, which confabulated about an ephemeral heartbeat, has gone forever. It means nothing. Sure, and this, although, you know, okay, that's the difference between religion and sport, art comes somewhere between the two. That first performance of, I forget what you said, the Missa Solemnis, yes, fine. There are only 1,400 hearts beating there, but I bet over the 200 years since, another, or 170 years since, there has been a billion or two, but it goes on vibrating. Once you've heard the Missa Solemnis, it's not just that experience goes on vibrating in you, it's that you can return to an object which is perfect in itself and encapsulates it within itself, the meaning of that experience. You can't return to that. You can on video return to that moment, but it doesn't gain anything from it, and it doesn't have anything in it apart from that moment.
And how do you calculate just how many billions of hearts have missed a beat on listening to a recording of a Handel, a Bach, a Beethoven, How do you record the number of hearts which how many people have refused to go to the toilet because the music is coming to a crescendo? We do not go into homes to actually watch people listening to this music. And we do not know how many copies of William Shakespeare have been sold, you know, since the bard lived. And how do you quantify these things? That is why I think we have a right to continue to make these distinctions, even if everybody, you know, goes mad for a single moment when Maradona. I happened to watch that in the Martinique, by the way.
See it again and again and again and again. There are television channels entirely devoted to football where every Maradona goal is shown at least once a week.
But I'm saying that let us calculate. In the same way, how do you, if you're going to quantify, how do you calculate how many people have listened to one recording of even a folk music? We're talking just now.
But why are you talking in these terms? You can't quantify the sort of attention that they give. You're going to turn the Beatles into the most important music ever written if you keep this up.
A few years ago, if you had said you came from Chicago, they'd think that's the city of crime and disgusting poverty and so on. Now people all over the world think this is the city of Michael Jordan. Now, those kids have got a reason for pride and hope in themselves and their city, no matter whether it's low art, high art. No, you don't need to ask that question. They're going to be more ready now to listen to Duke Ellington, to listen to Billie Holiday, to open their minds to all these things because they're proud of being from the city of Michael Jordan. So what's wrong with that?
No, I never said I had anything against Michael Jordan.
No,
I just say,
well, only football.
Okay,
basketball's better.
I don't
anyway.
I don't like his game anyway. But I've nothing against him. And he's a very rich man, and he's a role model. I agree with you. He's a role model. What has that to do with comparing that game with a work of art?
That game
is the question.
Can bring people into a kind of attention, which then they can get from there to somewhere else.
Very good.
I think what people are talking about is what is being excited. That is, what it is when you look at a painting or you hear music or read a poem or you go to a sporting event, what's being excited, what's being aroused, what's going on then is not the same thing. There is a qualitative difference. And I don't think this is the point.
I'm saying you can use one as the platform from which
But I would like to make a point about this because all of us stuffy academics are sitting here trying to show that we're really with it, we're really hip, we really care about the Knicks or whoever, we're really concerned about the Red Sox, because we know when we're licked, and we're licked in this case, and we have really got to turn around and understand what went on here. This is a default culture.